We're going to go to Norris and McDonald again. Norris.
A follow-up to Jan's question about comparative analysis, I guess, or comparison of other types of projects. Our organization, we also participate in these sorts of hearings for liquefied natural gas and for wind. And one of the worst hearings we went to, one of the most volatile hearings we participated in, was a wind project, Cape Wind, off the coast of Massachusetts. There were hundreds of people there. You would have thought it was the end of the world. Same thing with liquefied natural gas. Those are some of the most volatile hearings that we have. That people think that they're so dangerous. Of course, the views on the wind and explosions from liquefied natural gas, but it appears that everything is being held up because of these certain fears. I have a question too, to follow up to Mr. Espy and the sheriff, and that is, considering their concerns, will there be a regression analysis that considers the past economic situation, the tax base, and that situation? And also, will there be a comparison of the bill for the new plant that includes the subsidies that are included in the Energy Policy Act of 2005 compared to if they do not meet the requirements of the first 6 plants, if they participate outside of that? Will there be an economic analysis that includes the subsidies versus being outside of that parameter?
Okay, two questions there, and one is a methodology question in terms of the use of regression analysis in the environmental impact statement to arrive at certain economic conclusions. I don't know if we're ready to address that. Barry, do you, as the expert, I'll say that.
Hardly the expert in this area, but I think the point that you make that ventilating these issues, raising these issues are fundamentally important. Looking at nuclear power, that's the application that would come before the agency. But it is one of several different ways to provide electrical energy. So part of our environmental impact statement looks at nuclear, but it also looks at coal, looks at gas, other alternatives as well. So we look at the wide variety of energy sources that could be considered as alternatives to nuclear power. The resources that come from this plant is a complex issue that has to be worked out depending upon the type of plant, whether it's rate regulated within the state of Mississippi, whether it's a independent power producer that I talked about earlier. If your question is, should we go back in time to see what the economic situation would be within the community without Unit 1, where we are today and where we go forward?
No, not without, just a comparison. You heard the questions about the tax base. Just analyzing that and analyzing some of the other points you just made within that regression. Regression would take in all of those parameters, just a historical. And then you would have a basis for determining what the future would be from a tax standpoint, from an economic standpoint.
Because the application will reveal some information that we would scrutinize, and then ultimately we'd ask some judgment regarding the accuracy, the reliability of that information. And when it gets to the environmental impact statement, it's the NRC's environmental impact statement. The NRC is responsible for that information. As somebody said, trust and verify. We will go through the scrutiny of that information just to make sure that we can stand behind it. How that picture is played out, we bring in our socioeconomists that actually look at that information, try and assess what the base condition would be, which is today's environment. You have Unit 1 operating. This is the community as we understand it. And the action by the agency, if the agency decides to grant this combined construction permit operating license condition, if the commission goes forward and advances it, that still doesn't represent a commitment on the part of the utility power company to build something. You know, when they actually go ahead and build it, is again a business decision. It's not ours. We are in a position to authorize or not authorize, but we don't mandate that they build a plant in a certain time frame. The authorization is good for a certain time frame based upon the analyses we perform. Bring this information, rely upon the locals. Whether or not you come to the scoping meeting, we're going to be knocking on your door. If you look at Tammy's stuff brought up in building that environmental impact statement, we're going to be reaching out to the resource planning folks as well to get the information. So it's got to be in the equation. We're going to have to look at the information, and we'll evaluate it before we pass judgment on it.
And the beauty of the process, Norris, is that we rely on people like you to bring these things forward to us. And when we get to scoping, it's not just coming to the meeting and giving an oral comment at the meeting. There's an opportunity to file an extensive written comment on that. And in regard to your second point about the subsidies under the Energy Policy Act versus no subsidies, that again goes to company's business decision, but also it may be relevant in terms of our analysis of alternative energy sources in the environmental impact statement. So please bring those thoughts forward to us.